Imagine you're leading a company at a critical turning point. The market is shifting, new competitors are emerging, and your team is pushing for change. But your gut tells you to stick with what's worked before. You hesitate, you delay, you decide to wait and see. Months later, your biggest competitor launches a disruptive product, and you're left scrambling to catch up. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You didn't lose because of external forces. You lost because your brain tricked you into thinking that doing nothing was safer than making a move. Welcome back to the Mammoth in the Room, where we explore leadership lessons that stand the test of time. I'm Nicholas Bocconi, CEO of Mammoth Leadership Sciences, and today we're diving into one of the sneakiest, most costly decision-making biases in business. The status quo bias. This is part 3 of our series on evolutionary decision-making biases, those invisible mental shortcuts that shape your business decisions without you even realizing it. Stick with me until the end, because I'll share how status quo bias has taken down billion-dollar companies. How the evolutionary science looks like behind why our brain resists change, even when change is the only path to survival. And three powerful strategies to break free from this bias and start making bold and winning decisions. And at the very end, I'll reveal one of the biggest business disasters in history that happened because of this bias. So you don't fall into the same trap. Let's dive in. Let me start with a question. Would you stay in a burning building if the first exit you tried was locked? Most people think they'd immediately look for another way out. Reality check? Most people freeze. Studies show that in high-stress situations, people often hesitate and wait for someone else to take action, even when disaster is imminent. Here's a story, and I call it the giant that refused to move. In 1970, Kodak dominated the photography industry. It was a $10 billion business with 85% market share in camera and film. But then something game-changing happened. Digital photography was invented. The twist? Kodak invented it. One of their engineers created the first digital camera in 1975. But Kodak's executives refused to pursue it. They thought film was their core business, and changing would mean risking their cash cow. They stuck to what had always worked. By the time they realized their mistake, companies like Sony and Canon had taken over the digital market, and Kodak filed for bankruptcy in 2012. Psychologists Kahneman and Tversky in 1981 first defined status quo bias as our tendency to prefer things to stay the same, even when change is objectively better. And from an evolutionary standpoint, this bias makes sense. In prehistoric times, sticking with what worked was often a life or death strategy. If a tribe had survived for generations by hunting in one area, why risk moving? If certain foods had never made them sick, why experimenting? But in today's world, this bias is a silent serial killer. It keeps businesses from innovating, leaders from adapting, and companies from making the moves that will keep them alive. Now, you think only outdated companies fall for this bias? Think again. Even the most successful leaders and businesses get trapped by it. Now, here are the 3 most dangerous ways status quo bias sabotage decision-making right now. Number 1, the market shift trap, or why giants collapse overnight. Here's another story, Blockbuster versus Netflix. Did you know that in 2000, Netflix founders approached Blockbuster and offered to sell their company for $50 million. Blockbuster's executives literally laughed them out of the room. Their reasoning? People loved renting DVDs in stores. Why change what wasn't broken? Fast forward, Netflix is worth over, well, let's take a look. Where is it? Netflix, time of printing, market cap. 452 billion. Wow. And Blockbuster? Gone with the wind. What's the lesson? Well, in business, what worked yesterday won't necessarily work tomorrow. or maybe almost certainly won't work tomorrow. Sticking to old models isn't safe. It's the riskiest move of all. How to beat it? Here are two offers. A, when an industry shift happens, don't ignore it, test it. And B, ask yourself this actively. If I were launching this business today, would I do things the same way? That doesn't give you the answer, but it opens you up for the potential to pivot. And this leads us directly to number 2, the internal process trap. When we've always done it this way, becomes dangerous. Here's another story. Remember Microsoft's lost decade? From 2000 to 2012, Microsoft was stagnant. While Apple was launching the iPhone and Google was revolutionizing search, Microsoft was stuck in its old ways. Why? It had a deeply ingrained culture of status quo bias. Decisions had to go through endless bureaucracy. Employees were scared to challenge ideas. Innovation stalled. The result? Microsoft stock didn't grow for a decade. It wasn't until Satya Nadella became CEO in 2014 that Microsoft broke free. He shifted the company's mindset from protecting Windows to embracing cloud computing and AI. And today, Microsoft, well, let's look it up again, because we're in stocks today. This is Netflix, Microsoft. What do we have? Market cap north of 3 trillion. Wow. Thanks, Satya. What's the lesson? Well, if your business is slowing down, look at your processes. Are you resisting change because of comfort, not strategy? How to beat it? A, challenge sacred cows. What's holding you back? Slaughter them if needed. And then B, encourage, celebrate, incentivize, challenge of outdated strategies and the leaders who are responsible for them. Maybe they need to go. And that one leads us directly to number 3, the personal career trap. Here's another story about Microsoft. Steve Ballmer and the mobile revolution. I personally love the guy. There's this one video where he jumps onto the stage and screams, "I love this company." This guy's energy, amazing. But in the early 2000s, Steve Ballmer, then CEO of Microsoft, which had an iron grip on the PC industry, with Windows and Office generating billions in revenue, was deeply invested in Microsoft's traditional software business. Then, in 2007, Apple introduced the iPhone. Ballmer's response? He laughed publicly. He famously said, "There's no chance that the iPhone is going to get any significant market share. No chance." He dismissed smartphones as a gimmick, believing that Microsoft's existing business, Windows-based PCs, would continue to dominate. While Apple and Google rapidly shifted to mobile-first strategies, Microsoft clung to its PC-centered mindset. By the time Ballmer finally recognized the importance of mobile and launched Windows Phone, it was too late. Android and Apple had already secured the market. Ballmer was forced to step down as CEO in 2014, and Microsoft's failed mobile strategy remains one of the biggest strategic blunders in tech history. The lesson? Look, Ballmer wasn't an incompetent leader. Oh my God, he was brilliant. But he was just trapped by the status quo bias. He clung to Microsoft's past successes, which he built and his career was centered upon, instead of recognizing where the market was heading. The same mindset that made him a great leader in one era blinded him to the next. How to beat it? Question your own beliefs. If you've been in an industry for years, your biggest blind spot may be assuming that past successes means future security. And 2, don't dismiss emerging trends too quickly. The market doesn't wait for leaders to catch up. It rewards those who anticipate change and make that very changes happen. And then also surround yourself with disruptors. If everyone on your leadership agrees with you, you're probably missing something critical. By refusing to challenge the status quo, Ballmer led Microsoft behind in one of the biggest technological shifts in history. The lesson? transform constantly, or adapt quickly, or become irrelevant. All right, now that you know how status quo biases can hijack your decisions, here's how to fight back. First, force yourself to consider alternatives. Before making a decision, ask, if I were starting from scratch, would I still choose this path? Number 2, actively seek disagreement. Actively. If no one on your team is challenging your thinking, you're probably stuck in a bias loop. If everyone agrees, you're the one who have to drop the bomb to mix things up. And then 3, test small changes before rejecting them. Instead of outright saying no to something new, experiment on a small scale first. And again, we've only scratched the surface. Next week, we're tackling the sunk cost fallacy, one of the biggest reasons leaders stay trapped in bad decisions for far too long. All right, thanks for listening or watching. And if you want to outthink your instincts and make better business decisions, tune in again. Subscribe, rate, and share with anyone passionate about leadership. And lastly, if you're interested in more, you can order my book. It has the same title as this podcast, The Mammoth in the Room. It offers a practical roadmap how great leaders and their teams embrace evolutionary truths for outstanding business results. And it does that in 3 sections: on people, on strategy, and on implementation. Until next time, lead wisely, think critical, and don't let your brain run your business on autopilot. Nicholas Bocconi, The Mammoth in the Room.